Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull. Now, I do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but I don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. I'm just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. But as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. Now, we are going to get into some of the HBAR Foundation stuff, but to start off, the top story is certainly HBAR getting its own ETP. So that's an exchange-traded product. ETFs, which of course have gotten a lot of attention lately, that's an exchange traded fund. This is very similar. Now, this product in particular has been put out by Valor. They have a broad range of different digital asset ETPs that are out there. This one, of course, is backed by HBAR and it's listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. And some people out there might be wondering, why would you use one of these exchange traded products? Well, it eliminates a lot of the friction that's involved with getting involved with digital assets. You don't have to go out and get a Coinbase account. You don't have to learn about self-custody. You can just go to your normal brokerage and purchase one of these ETPs just like you would any other stock. And then, of course, your brokerage handles the custody of that asset. Now, there are some fees associated, and you might not be able to participate in things like native staking, so there are some drawbacks as well, but it opens up the HBAR to a much broader range of potential participants. Now, like I said, Valor has a few dozen different ETPs that they offer, but there's only about 15 different assets, so several of their ETPs actually are for the same asset. There's several different funds that leverage Bitcoin in different ways or leverage Ethereum in different ways, and it's nice that HBAR has now made it into one of these 15 assets that are offered. Now, of course, the holy grail for HBAR would be getting an ETF in the largest market here in the US, but this is certainly a step in the right direction. All right, so the next thing I wanted to touch on was there was a response from the HBAR Foundation on the recent controversy. I would have liked to have seen more action rather than explanation in this response, and if you want to know what I think should be done, you can go ahead and take a look at my show from last week. But one thing that I do think we need to remember is even though we're going through a hard time now, we've gone through hard times in the Hedera space before. We've gotten through them, and this too shall pass. And once we get to that point where we're past going through this time of change, going through this time of even tearing down, we are going to have to rebuild, and we're going to have to do that together. And I know the drama of these X spaces where a lot of the frustrations can bubble to the surface and we can get frustrated even with other community members. Certainly let us know how you're feeling, but with the understanding that we are going to have to work together in the future. All right, we're going to have to shift gears here. We're going to get into politics. No, it's not going to be the presidential race in the United States. We're actually going to be going over to Sweden. There's a collection that's being put out on the Mingo app from Jan Emanuel. Now, Jan Emanuel is a Swedish entrepreneur, celebrity, and former member of the Swedish Parliament, and he's now running for the European Parliament. And when we talk about things like Hedera and DLTs being used in the political arena, a lot of times it's bringing trust to the election process. But Jan is using this in a little bit different way. He wants to get the opinions of his constituents, and he wants to use the token to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and let Jan tell us in his own words.
My name is Jan Emanuel, and I'm running for the European Parliament. I having an NFT dropped to supporting my campaign, but it's not only an normal NFT, it's an opinion token. And I'm doing this together with Mingo, and I'm very grateful for this cooperation. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
So Jan is definitely a character. We appreciate him using Hedera to build these tokens. It's a completely new innovation, so it's going to be interesting how it all rolls out. All right, now we're going to shift gears here again to one of the newest members of our Hedera DeFi space, and that's Liquity. They are bringing a lending protocol to the Hedera space, and Tony, one of their co-founders, explains it really well, but not just what they're planning on doing within the Hedera DeFi space, but his broader vision as well. So let's check that out. Tony, welcome. We appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Well, it is absolutely my pleasure. I'm going to start off and ask, in your opinion, why is lending an important service to add to the Hedera ecosystem?
I really think it's one of the elementary money Legos that we need in the DeFi space. It offers so many opportunities and new dimensions, and it's a fundamental. Really, we're looking forward to see stuff that will be built on top. We see that in other ecosystems, and it's really nice to see the DeFi spring happening. So I'm very confident that these elements, also with Zero and Bonzo, will bring added value to the system for others to build on.
So the whole point of DeFi is to get access to some of the exciting tokens that are out there. From what I understand, you do have a fungible token. What is it called and how is it used on your platform?
Yes, so we have a fungible token, and there is also another token. So there's two tokens. The fungible token is Liquity, and basically it slurps up the people who stake that token are gain the rewards that are generated by the protocol. That's the role of Liquity. And in the lending protocol, what you can do is you can mint Swiss francs. Anyone can, not just you, Brandon. Anyone can. So that's the good thing. Basically, we built this decentralized machine where people can mint their own Swiss franc, stabilized with two oracles on Hedera with Pyth and super oracles that make sure that the price is always is correct and connected to DeFi platforms and a lot of different pools.
All right, so the next question I have is a pretty simple one. From the perspective of both a lender and a borrower, how do you go through the process of using Liquity?
So this is the same person. Liquity really, you bring HBAR and you receive Swiss franc. And basically, the HBAR is parked in a so-called trove, and it's on the side for you, and you can use the Swiss franc that you mint to do whatever you want. You can put it in other DeFi protocols. You can use it to pay, bills. There's already a gaming company in Switzerland that accepts the Swiss franc as payment. You can use it to put it in the protocol to gain more fungible tokens. So the Swiss franc that you mint can be used in many different ways. But basically, the lender and the borrower is the same person, and there is a whole ecosystem of things to make sure it's always over collateralized. It's always 110% over collateralized. And of course, another simple use case is you buy Swiss franc. With that, you buy more HBAR. You put it in, and you get more Swiss franc. So you can basically do go long on HBAR, which is risky, of course. But you can, on the front end that has been built by someone from the community block, there you can see exactly your risk exposure. And if it's below 110%, somebody else can close your trove, and the people from that are staking and have Liquity tokens will be rewarded.
So going back to the Swiss franc, are there going to be other tokens that you can borrow, or are you going to stick with the Swiss franc?
So what we build is immutable. We built it. It's out there. We are currently in discussions in terms of strategy. What are our next steps? And of course, we have a lot of different ideas. Adopt other currencies. There's legal stuff that we discussed. Adopt other mechanisms. Have more collaterals. We also think of what we built is not new. That has been built on Ethereum before. It's been rock solid for many years, hasn't been exploited, has been very successful in terms of volume and reward. So we think it will have the same in the Hedera ecosystem. And there, for example, other community members build chicken bonds on top. That's also something that we look at. How can we incentivize community members to build chicken bonds? I think currently this is the process. We have 2 days where we go sit together, also find out what does the team want, also where can we see opportunities. So whoever listens to this and has ideas, we're very open to next step, and we will announce them in August.
So you mentioned that you've done this already on Ethereum. How did that progress? How did the roadmap progress, and where do you stand on that network now?
Yeah, so it wasn't me doing there. It was someone else. Robert Lauka was the guy who was behind it. He's also Swiss. We know him. He supported us when we migrated to Hedera. They took, I think, 3 or 4 years to have a version 2. So they're currently, discussing their version 2 and trying to implement it. I don't know the roadmap exactly. I think it will be live towards the end of the year. So this, of course, is also something that we observe very carefully. Their version 2, once they're live and we see, it's rock solid. It's very, the next path and easy to adopt. And it's good to have the support also. I think in terms of regulatory environment, we're also very on the good side in Switzerland. We have very clear laws. We know exactly what we're allowed to do, and that's very helpful.
So you already mentioned how you could use the lending platform to go even more long HBAR. Are there other ways that you see your platform being used by most of the people that are out there?
I think it depends on really on what user you are. Personally, my vision is, and one of the reasons why I push this is I see Forex will be on chain at one point, even if it's 10%. And the Swiss franc is represented 5 to 6% in traditional foreign exchange, and foreign exchange is the biggest market. It's I think 17 trillions per day. So even if there's some margin, some 2 or 3% of that on chain, imagine the volume. And that's also why we decided to go on Hedera, because, clearly, if you want these volumes, we need an infrastructure that can take the load. And, we have internal discussions. When will that happen? How many percentage of Forex will happen on chain at one point? So if you think these people, we don't know when they come, but they will bring the traction that are really promising. Then other customer base that I personally would love to see is companies that do their treasury management, or organizations where they say, we've talked to organizations, they say, oh, wow, you can do it 24/7, oh, wow, it's instant, atomic swap stuff that for blockchain people or DLT people is completely normal. They were like, oh, this is amazing, this is a leap. But, and this is a big but, organizations, particularly the bigger, the more, are very slow in adoption. They have to jump internal hoops. There is risk analysis. And of course, also, there's sometimes politics, decision maker, if he takes a risky decision, it impacts his career. And so sometimes you discover organizations that rather do nothing than take an opportunity, because if they don't have pain, they will not change. So our strategy is not to address the industry leader, but the challenger, because they are opportunity driven. So I think, treasury management is a big thing. And also, if you're just sitting on your HBAR and you understand the mechanism of people having an emotional thing about Swiss currency and the belief that it is super strong and low inflation. We have a community, from what I understand, in Southern America that clearly, says US dollar, yes, but also Swiss franc, yes. So that's the other thing. And you don't necessarily need to do open a trove and do all that stuff. You can just swap it on Source Swap or Heli Swap or wherever you want to go.
So, of course, we have some other lending protocols that are coming to the space. We have Bonzo Finance, we have Sirio. From what you're telling me, it seems like you're more focused on the traditional side of things, even though it can be used in DeFi. You're trying to make that move into Forex in general, a huge market. Is that what you would say is the biggest difference between Liquity and some of these other platforms, that you are focused on those traditional spaces?
I'm not sure. I think also in terms of how the stuff works, ours is very simple minded. You bring something, you get something, and it's not a two-sided market. I think that's one thing, and it's very dumb. It's no AI involved. So I think that's also I love the idea of AI in a lending protocol, but quite honestly, I don't. Maybe I'm not smart enough, but it's like, I want to see it working, because I learn when I play around and when I work. And so I think I'm very curious to see what will happen there with Sirio. I played around a lot with Bonzo. I love it, what they're building. And I talked to the Sirio guys, great stuff, but I want to play around to understand better. So I think, but it's also amazing because I know the protocol. I think ours is a bit, simpler. You bring HBAR, you get Swiss franc, that's it. Of course, there's a lot of ways how you can, profit from the Liquity token and staking and all that. But the protocol is simple. You bring HBAR, you get Swiss franc, that's it. And and I think that's the biggest difference. And then in terms of target group, that's our vision, but it's not our product. We built the code, it's out there in the wild. And we can't force you to use it. So and we will not also, because it's not our product. We gave this away to the community. And if you, Brandon, say you want to make, instead of a Swiss franc, I don't know, some currency of some country, you can do it. The code is there. It's all belongs to the community.
That's fantastic. So before we let you go, Tony, is there anything else you'd like to pass on?
Yeah, sure. So personally, I think with Hedera, we really do have an infrastructure that is great, and that is enterprise grade. And whenever you get the chance to talk to decision makers and make them curious, don't force them to use it, but just make them curious. I think and tell them the opportunities, and also tell them, there's other companies that already use it. They accept this as payments, and everything is clear. We know the tax things, everything is settled. Don't worry. And I was even talking to an innovation company, and I said, I want to pay you with this, and they say, well, we don't have a wallet. And I said, guys, you have email, you have website, you have social media. Now it's a third wave of digitalization. It's the digitalization of values. You need to adopt and play around, even if you just accept a little thing, make people curious, have them play around, test them, tell them that, you can map all the governance stuff that you have traditionally in a company with multi-sig, and all that. So I think we really need to also, on a personal level, make people curious. I think that's where adoption starts.
I think that's a great message to lead on. Congratulations on getting to this point. We're really looking forward to what you're building. Thanks for building on Hedera, and good luck.
Thank you so much for having us, and all the best.
Now, I'm sure one of your top questions is, how do you get involved with Liquity? And just a few days ago, I went through the entire process. It was really user-friendly. I didn't have any challenges with it. And I came up with a little guide to run you guys through how you get involved. Once you fully understand the risks and are ready to get involved, go to hliquity.finance and connect your wallet. From there, you'll be taken to a very basic user interface page. To borrow the Swiss franc stablecoin, click on Open Trove. If you already have one open, click Adjust to make changes, or Close to return borrowed funds and withdraw your collateral. When opening a Trove, you'll deposit HBAR via the Liquity smart contract and be given the option to borrow the Swiss franc stablecoin. You can borrow up to 90% of the value of your HBAR, but I opted to only borrow half, so I didn't have to keep a close eye on market fluctuations. The risk if you become under-collateralized is they can liquidate your HBAR. Once you've borrowed the Swiss franc, you can take it to Saucer Swap and provide liquidity to the HBAR HCHF pool, which is currently yielding 15%. Then you can return to hliquity.finance and deposit your liquidity provider tokens to start to earn the Liquity fungible token HLQT. I went through all those steps and it was pretty simple. There is another way to benefit that I haven't gotten to quite yet, and that's to start staking HLQT to share in the borrowing and redemption fees. But it looks like all you'll have to do is tap on Start Staking and deposit your HLQT with a wallet approval. And of course, I'll start that as well as soon as I get a decent stack. So there's 3 ways to benefit just through Hedera DeFi using Liquity. But again, you need to understand the risks and should consult your financial advisor before getting involved. Now, Liquity is just the first of a few lending and borrowing protocols that we're going to welcome into the Hedera ecosystem. We also have Bonzo Finance and Sirio, which are going to be rolling out through the rest of the summer. And as soon as they do, I'll make sure to use them and create some guides for those as well. All right, without further ado, I do want to get into Shark Bites. We got some great questions from the community and great responses from Rob, so let's check it out. Rob, welcome back. It has been an eventful week for sure.
Yeah, hi Brandon. It's been an interesting week. We've got a few more meme coins in the ecosystem. Things haven't moved as quickly as I thought they might last week, and the universe hates a vacuum. So hopefully that'll be closed pretty soon. But we've got some great questions this week.
We do.
We've also had Blockchain Week in Australia, so I'm a bit hoarse at the moment because I've been doing a lot of talking, and the events have been amazing, and maybe a little bit more about that later.
Barring this first one, the responses should be pretty quick, okay. So I think we'll get there.
Okay, cool. And then also, I don't want to move forward without saying that I've been delighted to join the Mouth team this week. I was invited to join the Teeth. Shiny and a little wonky maybe, but it's great. I think what they're doing is fantastic, and amplifying the voice of the community and doing what Web3 marketing really should be. I'm delighted to add my very small bit of support and help wherever I can. So it's been an eventful week all in, but let's get into the questions.
Sure, absolutely. So the first one comes from Bodie McBoatface, who wants more information on private networks and how they could or could not generate revenue for the mainnet. Yop had one on the same subject saying, in your recent interview, Eric Pacini introduced a new term to the community, the special purpose network. While initially the concept sounded novel, hasn't SPNs always been the plan for Hedera, albeit with a different name? For example, AppNets or privacy layers. So Rob, do you have any insights on these special purpose networks?
Yeah, I think it's not the go-to-market brand. SPNs is the code name, I think, for this project. Yes, it's true that Hedera has always, since it's been open sourced, there's nothing to stop any network kind of being created based on this technology. And it's also true that there are lots of use cases where they might be commercial or governmental, or where privacy is a concern, whether it be commercial or personal, where a fully public network is not perfect for that use case, and maybe in the fullness of time, new protocols that can be embedded into the layer one, the full public network, may solve for that. But as we stand, I still talk to many enterprises that are, concerned about blockchain or DLT in fully public networks. And this is what Swirlds Labs have seen. What Eric Piscini was talking about was they could use the Hedera code stack, exactly the same code stack, but in a private or semi-private instance to solve for that particular problem. So I understand, and we were briefed on this in New York at the recent Governing Council meeting. I understand that there has been a lot of thought given to what that might look like. I've seen a lot of the requirements because they did kind of outreach to the Governing Council members. We, from AP Plus perspective, contributed into that exercise, gathering requirements. What is it that enterprise need of a privacy layer? Could that be solved for with ZK type protocols embedded? Is it a side chain? Is it a layer 2? Is it what is it, and what does it look like? And how might it be anchored in the mainnet? It is true that we've had AppNet architecture for since almost day one. And that still, in my view, serves a perfect purpose for addressing some of the architectural challenges of privacy and moving business logic into a private layer is perfectly suited to that. However, the Swirlds Labs believe that there are use cases where a fully private version of Hedera might suit better, and we have to remember that's where Hedera came from. The original credit union use cases, which was a private distributed ledger that a lot of what we have now was originally kind of tested within. That context was tested within was where a lot of this is born from. So it's expanding our set of use cases into ones where public may not suit. And that might be an example of that might be a CBDC type network. It might be an entirely different special purpose network, which is why they've called it SPN, such as a telco, for example, a ready-made existing network which contains a lot of commercial and personal data flowing around. And those are just two examples off the top of my head. I mean, there are quite a few. I think what we need to do, though, is to prevent the unnecessary move towards private chains again, because in my view, private chains largely failed. Hyperledger I've talked about before. I've got personal experience of many businesses that have actually failed because they've selected private blockchains, and the heavy lift of managing a network like that actually becomes unviable from a commercial perspective. So I'm not saying that a private version of Hedera would be equivalent to a private permissioned Hyperledger network, but sort of logically similar. The benefits of a private Hedera network is it's exactly the same stack. So the Hedera network, the public network, is evolving rapidly into something which is much more supportable and manageable. And as we move towards an expansion of the network, we need all the tooling in place, and we need the resiliency of the network, which can be transferred into a private instance. You just manage the whitelist of nodes in a different way. And And then the $1 million question, quite literally, is how do we firstly anchor a private network in against the public network for security, and should we? And secondly, how does the public network get the benefit of the economics of the transactional flow in the private network? And these are still quite knotty problems that are being considered. Now, I think Eric suggested on your interview with him, and he said the same to me in New York, that Hedera would absolutely be used to kind of anchor the state of the private network. So whether that's the full state or transactional flow, it doesn't matter. I don't think it would be used. So there would be a relationship between private and public. And then potentially there is actually a licensing flow. The private network, the users of the private network would have to pay Hedera, the LLC, for the use of that license, even though it's open source. There's kind of licensing agreements that could be put in place for the use of it. So there would be a Hedera treasury, if you like, economic flow as well, which would come back into the network in order to use it as a private instance. So I think it's all good. I mean, in fact, I know it's all good. There is a need for something like this. It's better that I personally think it's better that we have a private version of Hedera operating in this way than. And I've seen some pretty crazy architectures where enterprises have wanted to go to Hyperledger Fabric, for example, and then only very minimally anchor into Hedera through these add-ons that have been around for a long time, but in my view, underused. So maybe this is a way of actually getting a true usage, a hybrid architecture, which gives us access to a lot more use cases than we currently have.
Well, that's what we're looking for. All right, so we have one of your countrymen up next. He says, following AP Plus closely as I'm an Australian and would love an update from Rob on what's possibly being built and a rough timeline on a possible announcement or when we could see a use case go live. Hoping it's this year. Cheers.
I'm not a fan of announcements about announcements. And unfortunately, I am unable to give any details right now. However, very, very soon we're going to be blogging and pushing out some content about what we had done so far. So there is the sequence of proofs of concept and soon to be pilots of the Hedera technology and the use cases that we've been looking at within Australian Payments Plus are going to be openly discussed. Over the course of the next quarter, we're in stealth, and we'll be kind of emerging from that with, kind of full explanation of what we're doing going forward. It's pretty exciting. We've got quite a range of use cases, both strategic, infrastructural, and customer engagement based that we've been looking at. And then within the Australian kind of ecosystem, building lots of partnerships, both within the financial services industry and beyond, in order to make all these things real. And we've got very little interest in running more proofs of concept. So we're now into a position where we have to, have commercial agreements in place, limited pilots into full production use cases, and those things take a little while to negotiate and agree and bring the right parties together, so that it becomes real. It's not just content for blogs. We've had Blockchain Week, like I said earlier, here, and there's been a real vibrancy. I'm on the board of an organization called Blockchain Australia, which is the industry organization for distributed ledger technology businesses in Australia. We're rebranding. We announced this week we're rebranding as the Digital Economy Council of Australia, which kind of talks to our wider remit and alignment with the economy and the digital aspects of the Australian economy. Hedera joined Blockchain Australia as a member a month or so ago. So we're kind of part of that, and it gives us the ability to talk or kind of contribute in the policy discussions we're having at government. So all of the great policy work that Hedera does through GovCom and with Neil Mini, elsewhere in the world can get channeled, and those insights kind of be focused and contribute to our discussions with the Australian government and Treasury and our regulators, which is kind of an ongoing kind of educative discussion that we're having with them. And then, I was just really heartened during this week at the sequence of events maybe it's just because I'm finely tuned like this, but Hedera has been mentioned a lot, and not just by me. Amy Rose Goody, who's our new CEO of Blockchain Australia, or now Digital Economy Council of Australia, is a big fan. She's been helping me with Hedera meetups around Australia. And the message is getting out there. There's a lot of people coming to me and saying, what are you doing at AP Plus? How can we help? How do we plug into these new rails? So I'm pretty bullish on all of the stuff that's happening down here in Australia, but I can't talk about anything specifically, just for a few more months.
Oh, we know when we have a champion like you down there, Rob, we're going to get a lot of traction. Now, Naz has the next question. They say half the year of 2024 is gone. What do you expect for the next 6 months?
So I'm expecting a lot of things, right? So that question can be answered in a number of ways. From a Hedera Governing Council perspective, all of the committees have objectives for this year, for 2024. And we're all on track. So we kind of report progress on these objectives. They're going to be published, I believe. So transparently and kind of with full disclosure, they'll be on the website, on the Hedera website soon. From a CorpCom perspective, we've got a lot more use cases to focus on through this year, and we are sponsoring and supporting a lot of the enterprises that are not sponsoring actively, but we're kind of presenting into the enterprise program that the Hashgraph Association runs. So many more of those will start coming to light, no doubt. There are roadmap activities that TechCom and Swirls Labs are focused on and are delivering through this year. MEMCOM has this target of filling the governing council by the end of the year, which I've spoken about in the past, and pretty happy that I think we'll get close to that this year. So that's kind of and then we continue to obviously do the work of the council and drive the agenda. I also think that the next 6 months will have a bit of a reset across Hedera. I think we're at that point now where there is a lot of will and intent to ensure that we are fit. So whatever that looks like, I believe that there is a real desire to ensure that the organizations that are partners within the Hedera ecosystem are fit for purpose for that. And that means kind of the governance and the ecosystem development and the engineering, all kind of making sure that it's super lean and super ready to really drive into this kind of next 12 or 18 months, which are likely to be an exciting ride. So we'll see that. I really, really hope that the community is engaged fully, that we're all pulling together, that we have the right principles, the right Web3 principles embedded in all that we do. I think that's essential, critical for the health of the Hedera ecosystem, which means listening to the community. It means building the developer community. It means transparency. And all the things that we kind of been hearing about recently, but have been hearing about for many, many years. So, hearing and listening are different things, and we absolutely need to listen to all those voices. I think we've only got those 6 months really to get that right. Probably a deeper answer than the questioner intended, or maybe not. But that my personal view is that we're at that point where we have to kind of inflect into what Mance actually called Hedera 2.0 when we were in New York. This is the new phase of Hedera. There are many things happening. There's quite a lot of friction because of it. And it's the time to now make sure that this ecosystem is fit to be to continue to be the best in class in all that we do.
Well, speaking of the community, DK33 asks, when will the community stop complaining? So do you have any insights on that one?
I don't mind the community complaining, right? We need to listen, like I said. Every comment that comes from the community deserves to be heard, I believe. Clearly, if they're just trolling, then they won't be heard for very long. But they come from the right place. I mean, people are in the community because they have been drawn to Hedera. And it's not as if we've got millions of people in the community yet. We will have, I hope, soon. But those people who have come for a reason, and it might not be my reason, it might not be your reason, but there is a reason that they're here. And their concerns or their criticisms or their complaints or their praise is all valid. So we should listen to it and we should understand where it's coming from and respond. It's discourteous not to respond to people who are directing questions at you. So I would give them the courtesy of a response and try and be inclusive at all times. Obviously, there are going to be fringes. There are going to be little pockets of dissent. That's every family has that all the time. But true leaders know how to deal with that and bring everyone together for the common good. So complaints isn't a bad thing. It's something that is part and parcel of life.
I really think it's just when the community feels like they're being treated fairly, considering their significant contribution to the network, whether that is capital, whether that's building applications or whatever it may be. As soon as they feel like they're being treated fairly, I think they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, it's being heard, isn't it? It's being heard and not being disrespected. Sometimes you slip into a place which is so focused on what you're doing, you don't listen or don't respect other people's points of view. That's a bad place to be, and we need to not try not to be that.
Well, we've gone through some hard times before. I'm sure we'll get through this one as well. So the next one comes from Tyler Stock 6781, who says, great job addressing the controversy head on. Question though, why do you say you're not doing these updates in an official capacity when it sounds like you're being paid to create them? Did I misunderstand what you said? So the whole point is the HBAR Bolt channel is not an official outlet for the HBAR Foundation. There's content that I make for grantees that may be leveraged by the HBAR Foundation, but the entire thing is not the HBAR Foundation. So I try to put as many disclaimers out there as possible to make that clear, because I may be talking about things, maybe a token or the price of the HBAR or something along those lines that isn't in line with what the HBAR Foundation would want to say. So I try to make that really clear in the beginning, and I'm happy you gave me the opportunity to clarify. All right, and the last one comes from Deepak U Wannabe, who asks, as a governing council member, how's the $250,000 salary justified? Is it paid out regardless if the member doesn't show to meetings? Now, I think there's some misconception around this as to who's getting that compensation, but Rob, I'm sure you're going to be able to clarify.
Yeah. The governing council members do not get paid for being on the governing council, first and foremost. It has been published and it was agreed 2 years ago, I think, maybe, that point, the board directors of the Hedera LLC, of which there are 7 voting and 1 non-voting, who is the chairman, Brett McDowell, would receive $250,000 per year for those services. And that was determined to be a market rate for senior board level directors that were actually taking a significant amount of risk, personal risk, because they are directors as independent individuals rather than affiliated necessarily to governing council members. So risk associated with the Web3 industry and actually the amount of work they do on the board. And this is before the president was appointed, so before Charles Atkins was appointed. The board does the work of the governing council. So the governing council vote for the board directors, and they were then tasked with kind of the day-to-day operations. Although the management team do the day-to-day operations, they oversee it, because we didn't have a CEO. And part of the decentralization decision was that Hedera should not have a CEO or a CTO. The board would kind of fulfill the executive functions of the organization. Whether or not you agree 250,000 was the right level to assign to those roles, and I have my personal views about that. That was what was agreed and continues to be the remuneration for that role. Now, it does have a number of criteria that one has to fulfill. So each of those directors, they have other responsibilities. There are board committees that are chaired and attended. There's regular meetings. There's ecosystem partner observer board roles. There's a variety of other functions that they fulfill. And those are tracked. And if they don't do that, then a portion of that remuneration is docked. So that's where it currently stands. There is an opportunity every year to reset that package level, and the governing council will be voting on that at some point in the next 6 months, because it kind of resets, it rolls forward in December. And December is the point at which the governing council then re-vote for half the board, so half the directors kind of roll on a 2-year staggered basis. So that's the board. The committed, and I'll address all of this in one go, so I won't avoid the questions. There are 3 levels of compensation that are published, and it's publicly available. So you've got the board directors, then you've got the chairs of the committees, and so each of the committees has 2 co-chairs, and each of those co-chairs receives 100,000. What we do is, again, there's a number of responsibilities for fulfilling that role, ensuring that there's proper engagement from the governing council, planning and running the meetings, as well as achieving all the objectives of the committee for that year. Again, the level of that compensation package is agreed and voted for by the governing council on an annual basis. And those co-chairs are elected by the governing council every year. So one co-chair does 2 years, and then the other one is staggered. And then the lowest level of compensation is the transaction signers. So in order to do the business of the governing council, the council members themselves have a number of decisions to vote upon, and to make the governance work, right? And this is all done on chain, and the transactions need signing by very special laptops, and to incentivize the governance to operate, the transaction signers are expected to do their job, and doing their job, they receive $50,000 a year. All of these levels are going to be reviewed very soon, and as part of what I was saying earlier about systemic reform and a reassessment, I think it's right that that's to be done. From a personal perspective, I do commit to investing and committing every HBAR that I receive into the ecosystem. So all of that that I receive for doing my Hedera job, I use to support projects that I'm working with, to buy tokens, to participate in liquidity. All of it goes into Hedera. And just so that everyone knows, I have never, in all my years, sold a single HBAR.
Well, Rob, we appreciate all the effort that you do put in. We appreciate your insights coming on here today. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you next week.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
All right, and the last thing before we get into network analysis is I want to go over the Kabila Academy. They are creating so many fantastic tools and resources to be able to use those tools. So to start, let's just go ahead and listen to an overview of what the Kabila Academy is.
Welcome to the Kabila Academy, a Web3 learning hub where you can learn how to NFT, how to get started in Web3, and your first steps. We cover everything from what we do here at Kabila, our mission, why we do it, the problems that we're solving, and our vision of a tokenized future and communities taking back what is theirs. Like I said, first steps of setting up a wallet, how to buy your first bag of HBAR, how to link up to the Kabila market and buy your first NFT, and of course, how to create your first NFT collection. We've also created an introduction to Hedera and the reasons why we have built our future on the network, followed by an in-depth explanation of our products and dApps, starting with our non-custodial HBAR wallet, how to set it up, how to download, how to create an account, how to buy HBAR, how to connect with Wallet Connect to all of the dApps across the ecosystem, and so on. An introduction to the Kabila market and how to discover your favorite NFT collections and launches. And next up, we have our NFT toolkit, where you can look into the access and pricing, followed by all the information you could need related to each of the tools and how to get started. And last but not least, the plazas, which, as it says, are coming soon. So stay tuned on this one. And then something we're very proud of is the NFT Academy, where we will give you an introduction to NFTs, why and how to leverage brand NFTs, why tokenize your community, what are the benefits of doing so, what does a tokenized future of communities look like, what are the benefits, an introduction to Hedera NFTs, how to create a collection, and so forth. And last but not least, a very important part of launching a collection is the branding, the community building, the strategy, obviously the utility, and we can't not mention the art of our favorite NFT collections. So we delve into all of these different parts to support your process before launching. And of course, we'll be adding more educational content to the Academy as we go. If you have any suggestions, any feedback, or any questions, you can always reach out to the team. But get started, learn how to NFT, and own what's yours.
So in the weeks and months to come, I'm going to highlight different parts of the Kabila Academy so our creators understand the tools that they have at their disposal as they enter their journey into Web3. And with that, we'll get into some Hedera network analysis. Now, as far as transaction volume on the Hedera network, we have normalized a bit with an average TPS of about 1,700 transactions per second over the last week. That has allowed us to get over 1 billion transactions just in that past 7 days, with a max TPS over 6,300. All of this with a time to consensus finality of just about 3.5 seconds. And also during that time, we've been able to create over 44,000 accounts. Now, taking a look at our fungible tokens, Wrapped HBAR, Karate, and Dovu took the top 3 spots. WAR was next, followed by the native USDC, Sauce, Energy Trade Token, and the meme coin Zero. The top 10 was rounded out by the bridge version of USDC, and finally PAC. Looking at our NFTs, the Saucer Swap Liquidity Provider token took the top spot, followed by the Road Code Access Card, the Slime World token from Nada, Liquity's Transformer NFT, Wild Tigers, the Times WTF, Bank Social's Secura token, the H-Suite LP token, a Lithos Rant CPU NFT, and finally, the new Silk Dex LP NFT. So the DEXs are certainly making their mark. And with that, let's jump into some Hedera DeFi. The total value locked in the Hedera DeFi ecosystem continues its slide to about $81 million. Saucer Swap making up $76 million of that, H-Suite $3.4 million, and HeliSwap $1.9 million. Looking at the HBAR and crypto markets, risk assets, including crypto, were hit pretty hard this week as we got a cooler than expected inflation print. Lower inflation means the Fed is less likely to open liquidity spigots anytime soon. Bitcoin is down 1% on the day and 7% on the week to about $66,000. HBAR has broken support just under 9 cents and is currently sitting at 8.6 cents and doesn't have much support until down around 8 cents. I will say it does feel like a period when not a lot appears to be going right, and HBAR is still holding up relatively well. So if Hedera governance can do its job and fix some of the issues we've discussed, we could be really well positioned for the future. Now, guys, I'm sure you can tell that I'm starting to lose my voice here. I am feeling a little bit under the weather, but I wanted to make sure to jump on and give you guys the whole run through that we normally do on our weekly update. As I mentioned, we are going to get through some of the challenges we're seeing right now. There's a lot to be excited about in the Hedera ecosystem. So looking out to next week, we're going to try to get an X space together with some of those lenders and borrowers to get some more insight into exactly what they're doing and how people can participate. Of course, we're going to get Rob back for another Shark Bites. And of course, we're going to try to get some more Hedera focused interviews to let everybody know exactly what's happening within the ecosystem. That's all we have for now. We'll see you next week.